Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Steezy A. Smith.
Yo, what's going on, y'all?
What's going on, dude? Last night was kind of interesting, if you don't say.
No, definitely, but that was fun. To everybody that was tuned in, he was referring to the NFC West Roundtable. Don't forget, every single Tuesday, 6 o'clock p.m. Pacific time, we talk about what's going on around the NFC West and, what we had going on last night. That was a lot of fun, a lot of interaction. We had a little debate going on. So, yeah, that was real fun, bro. I think, every single week it gets better and better.
Yeah, I felt like I needed to stir up a pot a little bit here and there. But yeah, what's
Definitely.
going on, I guess. Yeah. So let's get on to the topic of your Seahawks. I know it's gonna come down to a 2-game losing streak for Russell Wilson, and it comes down for us coming from a hard-fought defeat. But what did you have in the matchup? What's a favorable matchup for your Seahawks? What do you think our weakness can be that Seattle needs to capitalize on? I know it's been like a struggle for the last few games that you guys haven't been able to capitalize.
Honestly, I think Seattle. I know I talked about how I want Seattle to run the football a little bit more because I know Seattle's dead last in the NFL in opposing was the time of possession. And so to kind of limit the bleeding a little bit, I mean, you want to run the ball. Seattle's had the lead these last couple of games against Tennessee, against Minnesota. And so I just don't understand why Seattle's failing to run the ball. I understand against Minnesota, they had one possession, they had one drive in the third quarter. And so obviously the defense didn't help them out. But in some of those drives that Seattle had in the second half, they didn't capitalize on opportunity. And I know it's asking for a lot, when the defense is playing so bad, it's almost like the offense has to be perfect. And for the offense to have to play like that with a chip on the shoulder with that much pressure, I think that's asking for too much. And so, let's bring back some more balance. Let's run the football. But I feel like we run the football and we play off of that. We'll play action. In the second half, I want us to throw deep shots. To answer your question, I think to attack the secondary. I mean, we all know who was getting the ball on Sunday night. Devontae Adams, right, on that last drive. And yet he caught all 3 passes from Aaron Rodgers. Everybody knew he was getting the ball, and y'all still couldn't stop him. And so I'm not saying DK is on Devontae's level, but he's not very far down. He's not very far off. So that being said, I want Seattle to go deep. I want Seattle to attack that secondary in the second half. Look for Tyler Lockett. Get DK Metcalf involved early and often. Get D. Eskridge. I think he's coming back. But I really want to diversify, the passing attack rather than just focusing on one guy. But I want to be able to establish the run first and then play off of that.
Yeah, that's part of what needs to be done. I mean, I'll be straightforward about it. Like, if you guys can really establish a running game with Chris Carson, man, it can be really tough for us because we haven't been able to slow down much of the running game. So if you guys can really future Carson more in the running game, it can actually help your offense more. And especially time of possession has been like the most problem with Seattle. Like, if I'm kind of looking at it correctly, aren't you guys ranked dead last when it comes to time of possession in those first 3 games, or no?
Yeah, I think opponents are, like I mentioned, they have about 37 minutes possession every single game. And keep in mind, there's 60 minutes in a football game. And so that's way more than half that the opposing team is just being able to do whatever they want, really.
Yeah, that's the one thing that I've kind of started looking into because I did a lot of my research on Seattle, and that's been the one thing that everybody's been able to exploit more is the more time of possession. So, okay, you guys do good in the first half for some reason. Second half, you guys just play disaster out there. And if you look at it this way, this is the opposite with my team. First half, we look like shit. Second half, we look good. Like, what's the I just got a feeling it's going to be a close game. One or the other,
I mean, look, every time these two teams play against each other, it's always close. Whether or not it's in Seattle, whether or not it's in San Fran, I feel like it's always coming down to the last play or the last drive or the last couple of minutes. I think it was last year, right, when you guys came to Seattle. The game wasn't particularly close, but obviously you guys were decimated by injuries, so I'm not really going to count that. But with the exception of that game, every game has been close. You look back to a couple of years ago when Josh Gordon was still on the team. Remember when Seattle won in overtime in San Fran?
Mm-hmm.
And then remember when you guys won the division that same year in Seattle on one play or the very last play? It really came down to that play. Jacob Hollister was just centimeters, inches short. But every single game is close. I know you guys have some injuries that you guys are dealing with, but for the most part, I mean, you guys have your starting quarterback. You guys have I think Elijah Mitchell should be coming back this week. You guys still have Kittle, Debo, Brandon Ayuk. The offensive line is solid. There's some injuries on defense, but overall, a majority of your team is intact. Kyle Shannon obviously is still there. And so, that alone is going to make the game close. It is a divisional opponent. It's the first divisional game of the year. I think, like you mentioned, Jimmy G has never lost 2 in a row. Russ has never lost 3 in a row. Something there has to give. Man, and these teams are built to defeat one another. And so, I expect not something super high scoring, but I expect a great battle between the two.
Yeah, I don't expect it to be like the way it's happened before with you guys when you guys were able to do the dominate on us for a while. But I think it's going to come down to a very close game. I think the score may not be exactly how some people would expect it to be, but I can see it between the 20s, like you were saying. It can go down between the 20s right there. So it can come down to the last possession, or it can come down to who doesn't make the most turnovers. So the thing with Seattle is, like you just said, that you guys were not like, you guys are like kind of like almost dead last in running the ball. So that might be your next formula, is to run the ball. You need to feature in Chris Carson, because if you look at the way we played against opponent running backs, they've been able to run the ball. So you gotta look at it this way. Chris Carson needs to be a factor just to give us problems. Because if you can do that, it can really make our pass rush a little tired here and there. But if you guys abandon that, then we might just be able to. I know blitzing Wilson's not going to be a good idea, but you got to get to him pretty good. You got to contain him. So I was thinking, since the injuries were coming into play, there's a great idea of what we can do to Russell Wilson. You got to get in Samson Ebicom. Let this guy spy in. Forget about him rushing the passer. Let him spy the quarterback. This is where he did his job at with the Rams. Maybe this is where we need to use him at.
I agree. I mean, you guys have a plethora of options at pass rusher. I think Ebukam, he has a lot of potential, and I haven't really gotten to see how much of a factor he's had, on your guys' defense. But like I said, you guys have a lot of bodies. You guys have a lot of pass rushers that you guys can rotate in and out. And Seattle's offensive line is dealing with a few injuries. We haven't had our starting center. Ethan Posick has been out. I don't know if Brandon Shell's coming back this week. And so Seattle's already looked vulnerable in the last few weeks without those guys. And going up against that loaded pass rush that you guys feature, it's just like, man, Seattle, they're going to have to focus, aside from the ground game, they're also going to have to focus on the short passing attack. I mean, that's one of the ways that you're able to elude, great pass rush when your offensive line isn't the best. Utilize the quick passing game. Get rid of the football within a second or two as soon as the ball snaps. Maybe throw some more screens, kind of, force those guys to rethink how aggressive they should be. There's really a whole bunch of angles that, Seattle could go, or they could attack that. But, that's what I think. Like I said, run the football, establish a short in the quick passing game, and then play off of that in the second half, take those deep shots, and, we'll see where it goes from there.
Yeah, that's part of the one thing that you guys got to do at some point. In the second half, you got to take some deep shots, and that's been our issue. We haven't been able to do good against those situations. Like when you saw some glimpse of what Jalen Hurts did, that's what Rodgers did. He took he took a lot of those deep shots a lot more than what Jalen Hurts did. But if you guys can really do that, it can be a really long day for us. But personally, like, if we can just stop your offense and just be on the field more, I can see why your team's struggling in the beginning, because of the way you guys haven't been able to stop running backs also. So you look at the matchup you guys have played against. The Colts, I guess for some reason, you guys play the running back, right? The running back he did pretty solid, which is Jonathan Taylor. He did decent. Then they got the other running back, what is it, Himes or whatever. And then Derrick Henry had a breakout game, and that's when I'm looking into the film. I'm like saying, man, Seattle's defense doesn't know how to stop the run as good, So I looked at a lot of the matchups. And who was the other running back? Madison, and it wasn't Dalvin Cook. It wasn't even like Dalvin Cook at all. Like, wow. So I feel like this is going to be a good game. I think both teams are going to give up a lot of running plays. So that might be the most interesting part. Oh, what's up with it, Rudy? Yeah, I wish Niners made a move on Sherman the day after. That's the one tricky question that I didn't understand. So he went to the Bucks. Man, that's why I hate Tom Brady even more, bro. Stop being like LeBron James. Come on, dude. Stop being LeBron James. I can understand NBA. They're starting to become NBA now. Oh, how about you join us? How about you join us if you don't want to beat us? Come on, man.
I mean, but look,
Don't you think?
to be fair, bro, Tampa Bay secondary is almost non-existent. You know, the way that they've been playing. I know they're dealing with injuries. Sean Murphy Bunting, he's currently on IR with a shoulder injury. He got injured in week 1 against the Cowboys. I think Jamel Dean left early against the Rams just the other night. And so that secondary has been playing awful. They needed the reinforcements. And Richard Sherman, he's getting a little older. You know, I still think he could provide a lot of value. I still think that he's an above average corner in the National Football League. I still think that he could excel, especially with the scheme, with the pass rushers, with the defense that they have. He can excel, but it's not as if like they have a super team in the secondary, because that secondary, like I said, is awful.
Yeah, the Rams were able to expose that spot too. So
They did.
I'm not saying like in a bad way, but it's like if the Rams can be able to expose that and some other teams could, then it's anybody's guess. Like look at the Cowboys. They exposed that weakness right there too with Tampa Bay. So I really do think Tampa Bay is not exactly what people think they are. They just won one Super Bowl. They seem like those one-shot wonders that kind of win it the following year and then they don't win it another time. So they won 2 total Super Bowls in different decades, but they just needed cornerback help, and they weren't afraid to pull. Yeah, we didn't even do it. We just went out there. I guess getting Buster Scream was kind of like just to play the nickel, because that's where he pretty much plays well at compared to what we have right now. Because if you look at the injuries, Quan Williams, he's ruled out because he has like, what is it, a strain, calf strain or something. So he should be out a couple weeks. So that's kind of like a position we need to fill in. And I guess the cornerback depth after those injuries, like if Norman doesn't play, we got Drake or Patrick, Dante Johnson. That's not looking good. And then you got what is it? Dion Mador Lenore, which he's decent. Then you got Ivory Thomas. So it's like, dude, I don't know what we can expect from this team. Oh yeah, we got Devontae Harris, another guy that we just got from the Ravens. So we'll see. So what do you think of your depth right now when it comes to your secondary?
I think there's a lot of unknown, you know, and I say that because Trey Brown, our rookie 5th-round pick, if I'm not mistaken, he's yet to play. You know, he's currently nursing an injury on IR, but he should be good to go. He should be ready to come back within the next few weeks. I'm curious to see what he's able to provide. You know, I remember when he was first drafted, I got the video talking about why I was so excited, because he brings that dog back to that Seattle defense. He's very undersized. I think we're the same height, you know, about 5'9", but he doesn't play anywhere near his height. He plays like he's like 6 foot something. You know, he's playing with a chip on his shoulder. He's a clutch football player. He's able to force turnovers. I mean, he's not by any means a turnover machine, but it just always, to me, when he was over at Oklahoma, he always made the right play at the right time, especially in crucial moments. And right now, what Seattle is sorely lacking, aside from consistency in the pass rush, I'm looking for a ball hawk in that secondary. Because I mean, when you have a guy that could force turnovers, when you have a guy that can intercept the football, when you have a guy that's opportunistic, when you have a guy that's playing the ball in the air, that's able to erase mistakes, that's able to cover up, you know, holes on the defense, you know, especially when you're able to take the ball away and you know, give it back to your offense. You know, we always look at the Chiefs and talk about how, oh man, that defense gives up a lot of yards, that defense is bad. But the difference between Kansas City's defense and Seattle's defense is the fact that Kansas City's defense is not only better in situational football, but they're opportunistic and they force turnovers and they still get after the quarterback. And so there's a lot of, you know, similarities, but that's the main difference between Seattle's defense and Kansas City's. They have playmakers that can force turnovers, that can give the ball back to their offense despite bleeding a whole bunch of yardage. And so if Seattle is able to get back a Trey Brown, Sidney Jones, who we haven't yet seen in Seattle, let's see what he can do. He's been somewhat of a ball hawk. I mean, I don't know if you knew this, but he played over at UW, you know, and he was phenomenal. He should have been a 1st-round pick, but I think he tore his ACL entering, what was it, right before the draft. You know, he tore his ACL. He ended up sliding to the 2nd or 3rd round. And so I want to see what some of these guys got. You know, let's play Sidney Jones this week against the Niners. Once Trey Brown's ready and good to go, let's play him. Instead of starting Trey Flowers, I'm not going to advocate, oh, let's cut him, let's release him. Just slide him down the depth chart. You know, just give him less snaps. Maybe have him come out in dime packages and whatnot, prevent packages. But he really doesn't need to be on the field as often as he has been just because he hasn't shown too much. And I get it. There's a lot of miscommunication. You know, some guys don't know what they're doing on defense. Maybe that helps Trey Flowers' play a little bit, but I mean, his play from the last few seasons hasn't inspired a lot of confidence. And so I'm looking for a ball hawk. I'm looking to see more playing time from Sidney Jones. Trey Brown, I'm excited to see him when he gets back. And if those guys aren't able to provide what I or other 12s or what the Seahawks are looking for, then maybe Seattle swings a trade for a Stephon Gilmore. I know he's on the PUP list, but the Patriots, to me, it doesn't seem like they want Stephon Gilmore. So why not trade him away? You know, his trade value is somewhat low right now while he's injured. I know Seattle doesn't have the most draft compensation. Seattle's without their first round pick this year, but I think maybe a second rounder gets it done, maybe additional picks on top of that. So if Trey Brown and Sidney Jones don't work, if they're even worse, which is hard to imagine, I say swing a trade for a Stephon Gilmore.
That would make sense just to get somebody like Stephon Gilmore, who's still got some years left in the tank, and doesn't seem like Definitely. The Patriots have nothing for him at this point, and they're just having him on the PUP. Okay, here's a question by the Ramelia Sports Report. He's asking you a question.
Okay. If Seahawks have a bad season, are you worried about Russell considering the turmoil and drama before the season? Yeah, definitely. I don't know if you've heard this, bro, but I'm definitely on the record saying that if Seattle is unable to make any real noise this season, this could be Russell Wilson's last year. And honestly, if the Seahawks fail to even advance to the playoffs, I think he's all but gone. You know, I hate to say that he's my favorite player. He's one of my favorite players, but I just feel like Pete Carroll hasn't really done him justice these last couple of years. And so if it ends up culminating like that, in which Seattle fails to make the playoffs, or Seattle finishes with a record just barely above 500, a record below 500, it might be time to say goodbye to Russ. You know, I want to do right by him. You know, and I'm sure Seattle wants to do the same. I'm sure the city of Seattle wants to do the same. And so if that's what he truly desires, then so be it. You know, I'm not gonna be like the Cavs fans when LeBron first left and start hating on him. No, I'm not gonna have any reason to hate on him. You know, I'm gonna be understanding, and I'm gonna appreciate the fact that, you know, we witnessed him play here in Seattle, and I just hope that Seattle's able to put it together, because man, I don't want to see Russ leave. Like, what? I don't want to see him leave. But I could also envision a scenario in which maybe after the season, management, the franchise, and Russell Wilson, maybe they have a talk. You know, maybe obviously they're going to be at a crossroads, and maybe Russ is like, you know what, one more year, but changes have to be made on my watch, or this person got to go, or that player got to go, or I want this guy here, I want that guy, and maybe Pete Carroll got to go. Because I've also been on the record saying this: if it ever came down to Seattle having to pick between Pete Carroll and Russell Wilson, you go with the franchise quarterback. Franchise quarterbacks do not grow on trees. Head coaches, they don't grow on trees either, but Pete Carroll is 70 years old. He's unlike any other head coach. Obviously, Russell Wilson has more future in this league than Pete Carroll, and the quarterbacks just have more value than coaches. So I don't know. There's a lot of ways to go about with that question, but I think there's a few options, and you know, these next couple of weeks will be very telling.
Yeah, it can be determined. Like, I've seen a lot of your videos of what you were saying about the blame on Carroll and other stuff. So yeah. Mm-hmm. Of course, we would. It's pretty obvious to take Russell over anybody. I was just saying, Jimmy, just to get on your nerves a little bit. But and seriously, when you put him on a better talent, of course. But okay. If Jimmy was in Seattle, let's say he is in Seattle, like for that example, of course you're gonna suck there because Jimmy's not playing good with this kind of surrounding. But if you put Russell the opposite way, I can see more of a Super Bowl contending team right there, because you got a guy who can really do a lot. But then again, we got Trey Lance, who's supposed to be like a bigger version of Russell, but we have to judge the kid yet. So I think there's some potential in this kid.
No, definitely. I've also been on the record saying this, but I'm afraid of Trey Lance and his potential just because he plays for you guys. Now, if he played for us or if he played for a different team, I wouldn't be so afraid. But you guys are our biggest rivals in the division, maybe in all the NFL. And so to think about what he brings to the table, his physical tools, his athleticism, the fact that he's so dynamic, the fact that he's such a great leader already, the fact that he's so young, he's only 20 years old. I think he's the youngest player in the league, or if not one of the youngest. And so to think about what he could potentially be down the road, that's a scary thought for not just me, but I'm pretty sure for all Seahawks fans, and I'm pretty sure for the whole entire Seahawks organization. Like, he really drips and oozes that much potential. So, I mean, obviously, Russell Wilson over Trey Lance any day, but in terms of the long road, the long run, man, I think that's definitely a conversation to be had.
Yeah. Okay, I take Russell or Aaron Rodgers on the 49ers because they are elite. Well, of course, it's pretty obvious, but okay, like if Jimmy wasn't a terrible team, like if let's say for example, like if he was playing for a terrible team, like the situation with Seattle, they wouldn't probably win any games out of him because they would probably be like, what is it, like 0-3 or something. You put him in the Raiders, they're probably win maybe 1 or 2 games out of him. That's about it because they got the better talent. But if you put him in teams like Minnesota, he probably barely win a game out of them. But with us, it's because we have a decent, better supporting cast. I think with our supporting cast, it's like we got them the weapons. I think our defense is not as bad as people think it is. We just need to capitalize better next time. But I think if you put him in a team like Seattle, I think he would be winless with that situation. Because if you put him in a bad environment, it's not looking good. You put him in Houston, he'll probably not even do good. But in San Francisco, for some reason, Shanahan just knows how to make the best out of anybody. If he was back in New England, I think New England would be solid because he would fit the system there too. That's just my opinion.
No, I'm with you, bro. I mean, that's what separates.
Oh, something happened with his reception.
My bad. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. What happened, man? Blackout?
Okay.
All right.
No, somebody was calling me. But what was I gonna say? So that's what separates a good quarterback from a great quarterback. A good quarterback needs to, in my eyes at least, a good quarterback, they can win you some games. They can take you maybe to the playoffs. They could give you maybe a record over 500, but they need an elite supporting cast. They need a great support system. They need pieces around them to look that good. Now, for great quarterbacks, no matter the system, no matter what playmakers, no matter who they have aside from them, they're going to perform like an elite quarterback. And so, that's why I just don't think, well, I'm pretty sure everybody can agree with me on this, but nobody is saying that Jimmy G's on the same tier as an Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson, because those are the elite of the elite. Patrick Mahomes, I think Lamar Jackson is making his way up there. Josh Allen, Tom Brady, obviously, he's just not on that level, but he's definitely, I think he's still above average. Obviously he's a starting quarterback in the National Football League, but yeah, bro, there's levels.
Yeah. Well, for Jimmy Garoppolo, he's in the tiers of guys like Kirk Cousins and Derek Carr type level. That's what you're going to get out of those guys.
I think right now, bro, I'd have to disagree. Right now, Derek Carr and Kirk Cousins have been balling. Both those guys are at the forefront of the MVP conversation. And that's weird for me to say Kirk Cousins and MVP in the same sentence, but through 3 games, he's yet to throw an interception. I think he's amongst the league leaders in passing yards and passing touchdowns. Derek Carr, his Raiders are undefeated. He's also amongst the leaders in passing yards, and they've beaten quality opponents. And so right now, I just don't think Jimmy's in that conversation. Maybe a couple years ago when he took y'all to the Super Bowl, when he was a quarterback for that Super Bowl team, he might have been in that discussion. But this season, if we're just talking about this season, I'd have to say no.
Yeah, I mean, just the stat wise, I guess you can look at the stats between those two, but I'm talking like tier talent. Like you look at guys like Derek Carr, you have to give him talent to surround him. Russell Wilson doesn't need all the talent in the world to be successful. Rodgers doesn't need all the talent in the world to be successful. Guys like Kirk Cousins and Derek Carr, they need all that talent to succeed, is what I'm saying. Like that's the same level of what Jimmy G is. See, you can talk all the stats about this year. Yeah, Derek Carr's playing hella good. You got Kirk Cousins playing good. But what separates them is they need the talent around them. Does Russell Wilson need the talent? Yeah.
So I get what you're saying, but I'm not just taking stats into account. You look at a Derek Carr. Back in 2016, the Raiders were 12-4, and he was in the MVP conversation. Jimmy G has never been in the MVP conversation, not even close. Kirk Cousins in Washington, okay, maybe Kirk Cousins is more of the stats guy. And so I think you could put Kirk Cousins and Jimmy G in the same tier. But I also look at just quarterback talent. And with Derek Carr, I've seen him make throws that I haven't seen Jimmy G make. I just think that Derek Carr is just a better quarterback. Stats or not, put the stats away. We can put the stats away. But in terms of the eye test, when I watch between Derek Carr and Jimmy G playing football, when I watch who's playing quarterback between those two, I just see a better quarterback in Derek Carr. So I'd put him in a higher tier because of that. Just my opinion, though.
Yeah. Well, he elevated with the better talent. So, yeah, you can say he does a lot better as a passer than he does what Jimmy does. But we're talking like he can elevate with better talent. But when you put guys like Brady and the rest of them, does Brady need everybody in the world? No. He's won championship with lesser-known receivers. Like, you look at guys like he's a decent game manager. I guess you can say Jimmy Garoppolo is like a Mark Bolger of this era, and he's like a Alex Smith, I guess. Alex Smith 2.0, that's a fair comparison to say. Don't you agree or no?
Who, Jimmy G?
Yeah, he's kind of like an Alex Smith 2.0, I guess, from what I'm looking at.
I don't. I mean, that's tough. I think Jimmy G might be a more capable quarterback, but I think Alex Smith is a better leader. I think Alex Smith is more mobile. I think Alex Smith is. I think when you're looking for leadership, Alex Smith would be your guy. But I just think that in terms of pure quarterback talent, in terms of maybe arm talent, I think I might take Jimmy G. So I don't know if he's the Alex Smith 2.0 because he's maybe not the player I'd compare him to. But I could see the logic behind that.
Yeah, because game managers, they don't put up the stats like everybody else does. But yeah, man. So we got at least 2 more minutes of your time before you get going, like you said. You said 12:30 or 12:35.
12:35, yeah, bro.
Okay.
So what you think? What you think's gonna happen this Sunday? What's your score, bro?
Score prediction, man. I think it's gonna come down to the wire. Who's gonna have the ball last? So it depends on who gets the ball and who gets the less turnovers. See, I'm already like looking into the game and thinking what could happen. Sure, you guys have owned us for a while, and it's kind of hard to get over the hump. But the way you guys are playing, this is an opportunity for us to bounce back. And I know what you just said is true. Russell Wilson's never lost 3 straight games. Jimmy G's never lost 2 straight games. So something's got to give. Just like that movie from Jack Nicholson, something's got to give. I mean, one or the other. One's got to lose. One's got to have one's going to have to play worse in that division. So this is what can happen. If Seattle loses, they're in the bottom of the division. If the Niners lose, it's tied for last place between the two, but Seattle will get the edge for that win. So one or the other, I got the Niners winning by 4 points at least. I mean, sure, the Packers, they capitalized on us on the last second of the game. You guys had opportunities to close games, but you guys didn't finish. And it seems to me second half football has been your struggle, and the time of possession has been hurting you guys a lot. So that might be one thing we have the advantage on when it comes down to it, is the time of possession.
Definitely. I mean, you guys still run the football, and so that time of possession is definitely going to be in your hands as long as Jimmy G isn't turning the football over, because he has been turning the football over a little bit more. And actually, going back to what we were talking about earlier with Alex Smith and Jimmy G, that's also a major difference between the two. Jimmy G turns the ball over a lot more, way more than Alex Smith. And I know with Alex Smith, that might be a byproduct of the fact that he's not pushing the ball deep. You know, he's checked down Charlie, and he's always checking down. He's not looking to make that throw down deep. And so, but the facts are the facts. You know, Jimmy D just turns the ball over more than Alex Smith. So that's why I can't call him an Alex Smith 2.0. But going back to this game, yeah, it's going to be close, bro. Like I said last night on the NFC West Roundtable, Seattle's the more desperate team. I know Jimmy G's never lost 2 in a row, but Russ Wilson's never lost 3 in a row. And they're more desperate because Seattle knows that if they were to lose both of these upcoming games against division rivals, the season could already be over. Like I talked about in my latest video, the season could already be over before the season even really begins. And for me to really even be saying that at the end of September, early November, or excuse me, at the end of September going into October, that's a very sad thing for me to say. I can't lie. As a guy that roots for the Seahawks, as a Seahawks fan, I've been spoiled, you know, these last in the past decade, honestly. You know, and as I continue to get older, you know, I have a lot of people telling me that, oh yeah, you know, like you're a spoiled fan. You know, I grew up in the 90s. You know, I saw the Seahawks when they were bad. I was there in the 80s, blah, blah, blah. I mean, you can't blame me. You know, I wasn't alive. I wasn't born to see all those times. But man, like I keep saying, these next 2 weeks will be very telling. And
It's kind of like in the same boat as me. Like when I came as a kid growing up in the 90s, I barely got to see a lot of great of those years with the Niners. And then as I got older in the 2000s, it was just terrible years. Terrible years until Jim Harbaugh gave us some hope, and then terrible years again. Then eventually we got Kyle Shanahan, injury after injury. It's kind of like the same thing. I don't know why I get used to this type of thing, but it's like growing up as a Niners fan, you get used to these expectations. Oh, we can't stay healthy. We can't do this. If we got the team, we're a little bit more better than what people would say, but it's always been the injury bug since Shanahan's been here. I don't know what it is. Is it the voodoo from Levi Stadium or something with these injuries? I don't know.
Man, that's a good question, bro. That's a huge what if. You know, one that I'm not even willing to jump into that rabbit hole for. So it's tough.
Yeah.
But I'm just gonna reiterate this. So for those of y'all that didn't watch the NFC West Roundtable last night, I know I'm gonna sound like a homer, you know, but obviously I gotta go for Seattle, you know, but not just because I'm a Seattle fan. I just think that with their backs against the wall, with the adversity reaching an all-time high or close to an all-time high in Seattle, the fact that Russell Wilson's never lost 3 games in a row, the fact that I think head coach Pete Carroll's gonna make adjustments, the fact that I think we're gonna see some Sidney Jones, the fact that I think great teams overcome adversity, the fact that Seattle has started 1-2 before. I think that's all going to play in their favor. You know, and the fact that Seattle is playing so exceptionally well, especially on offense in the first half, that's a flash. You know, and they have the talent to really validate that. It's not just a fluke. And it really just comes down to making the right adjustments at halftime, you know, being able to have the communication with the players, making sure that everybody's on the same page, making sure that everybody knows their assignments, making sure that everybody knows what they're doing, making sure that, you know, no matter how bad it gets, that nobody is getting frustrated, that they're still keeping their heads high and continue to, you know, play football. So all those things being said, I think Seattle bounces back on the road. They moved to 2-2, 500 on the season. I think it's going to be relatively high scoring to the tune of 29, 20. I think I might have said 24 last night, but I'm going to say it's a 3-point game. Seattle wins 29, 26. Russell Wilson heroics down the towards the end of the game, and you know, maybe I'll shut up some people for a little bit, but that's who I got. 29-26 Seattle.
Okay, fair enough. Thanks for having me on the show, bro. Appreciate it. I know you got to get going pretty soon. So,
yes,
yeah,
sir.
dude, like I said before, it's going to come down to the wire. I do have us winning by 4 points. It hasn't changed my mind. It's going to come down between 24 to 28 type of game, the way I look at it.
I can see that too, bro. I just see Seattle coming out on top. But hey, bro, what's the call? Thank you so much for having me, man. To everybody that's tuned in at CG Root the Sports, be sure to show my guys some love. Hit that subscribe if you haven't already. Smash that like, drop a comment, follow my socials. And if you don't mind me plugging myself, at Steezy Smith, primarily on YouTube, but you can find me on all other socials. Same handle at Steezy Smith, as you can see right here, down below. Right, yeah, there you go, right there. Right there. I just dropped a video the other day talking about if the Seahawks season is already over before it really begins. If you haven't seen that, definitely go ahead and tune in, tap in. And I got some more content coming. I'll be previewing the Seahawks and the Niners on my channel. And then once I start doing live streams, bro, hopefully for the next Niners and Seahawks game, I can have a little roundtable on my channel and just, you know, get you on there, bro. Definitely need to do that. I'm looking at StreamYard, so I'm gonna definitely get on that soon. And then Manny Pacquiao just retired last night, so I'll be dropping a video on that talking about whether or not he's a top 5 boxer of all time. So stay tuned, y'all. That's it for me. It's Steezy out.
All right, peace.
All right, bro.